Welcome back to another episode of Off the Couch Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We have Dr. Victoria Reister, not to be confused with Easter, but Reister. We talked about I wasn't going to screw that up. She's a doctor of physical therapy at Unite Rehab Perform, which is one of our community partners. Dr. Victoria, thank you for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So just want to kind of get to know you a little bit, your background. You know, our podcast is about being active and getting off the couch, and like, why is Dr. Victoria here? Well, you're about to find out. So where were you born?
I was born and raised in a small town in Illinois called Frankfort. It's kind of 45 minutes south of downtown Chicago.
Okay.
Lived there up until 24, 25 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, so lived there most of my life.
Most of your life? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And did you play sports growing up?
I did. I started in like cheer, tumbling, and then found my way into like volleyball, played a couple years of basketball, tried out track and field, didn't love that, so kind of stuck with volleyball, and then transitioned back into cheer like my senior year of high school.
Okay, yeah. Cool. So if y'all don't know, Dr. Victoria is my current physical therapist, one of them. I ruptured my Achilles like 4 months ago, and she's helping me recover that. And so you didn't tell me that you were a tumbler or a cheerleader. Yep. And so next time I'm there, I'm going to have you show me some tumbling.
Oh, gosh.
Because I'm ready for that.
It's been a while.
Could you do like back handsprings and stuff?
Yeah, I used to. It's been years. Wow. So
that's cool.
Yeah, need to get back into it for sure.
You have a turf area.
Yeah,
we could try it. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so you grew up, you did multiple sports. You're a multi-sport athlete. So I think it's safe to say you like being active and using your body.
Yep.
Awesome. And right now you moved to Colorado. How long ago did you move here?
We moved here in June, so it's been July, August, about 3 months.
3 months. Okay.
Yep.
You like it?
We love it. It definitely supports. We love it here. It supports our active lifestyle. So we actually moved from Indiana. In Indiana, summers are great, but you have about 4 months of good weather, which means once the winter months start rolling around, there's not a whole lot to do outside. Here, my husband grew up skiing, so here we get to incorporate like into our daily lives now. Nice. Skiing, winter sports, and kind of have year-round things that support what our lifestyle is.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons why I like to stay here. I love Colorado. I love snowboarding. So that's like a big part of why I stick around. And you like to ski. Well, yes. We have some of the best mountains in the connected United States. Yep. What I will tell you is it'll probably be, regardless, maybe better than what you're used to if you went anywhere out east. But we do have like good and bad snow years. So hopefully we have a good snow year this year. So you can really get a good year, lots of powder, all that fun stuff. Skiing is cool. It's just not as cool as snowboarding, but that's okay. It is cool. It's a way to be active. So, we support everyone's lifestyle choices, even if they choose to be skiers. So.
I have said I would like to try. I don't know how it would go, but I'd be willing to try.
Willing to try snowboarding?
Yeah.
Perfect. I could help you too.
Yeah.
I've snowboarded a handful of times, quite a bit. It's okay. I just like to give skiers crap. That's cool though. That's really cool. So how long have you been skiing?
I think we're going on like 5. This season will be like 5 years.
Okay. Yeah. And have you been to mountains out here in Colorado before?
I have. Okay. I've been to Breckenridge out in Colorado, and then I've done Taos, New Mexico, with like the other smaller areas, Sipapu, Angel Fire, those little ones.
Cool. Yeah. What's your favorite mountain you've ever been to?
I think just because I have been there so frequently is Taos, and I haven't had the opportunity yet to explore like all the places in Colorado. But some of my husband's favorites are
Taos. I've never been to Taos. I've heard of it. I've never been there. Yeah. But, my favorites here, you'll have to check out. You guys can check them out. Keystone, Breckenridge. So Keystone, Copper, and then maybe Breckenridge after that. Copper's a really good mountain too. It's not on the Epic Pass. But you're getting the Icon. Yeah. So you'll be able to go to Copper. They have a really cool terrain park, which I'm sure you'd love to go hit up. Do some jumps and rails.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, you could totally do it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So you like to ski. You're in a great place to do that. But I heard you also like to hike.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah. And you currently or recently did a 14er?
Yes, we did the DeKalb loop. So it's 4 and like just under 7 miles.
4 14ers?
Yeah.
In one day?
Yes.
Why?
Knock them all off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we wanted to do as many as we can.
You said it took 7 hours?
It took us 8. We had my dad with us. My dad is still currently living in Illinois, so he had traveled the night before, and we were just kind of going at his pace. I'd be interested to see how fast we could do it, just my husband and me, but I don't know that we'll do that one again.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, that's not
like a one and done.
I want to do. So for those that don't know, a 14er, what we're talking about is any mountains that are over 14,000 feet tall. We have a handful of them in Colorado. I've lived here my whole life and I've never done one because
not
of
one?
no, I don't have a desire to do one. You know, it's very high up. It's already hard to breathe. It's like really hard to breathe up there. And you have to wake up at like 2 a.m. What time did you wake up?
We stayed there. So I think we ended up getting up at like 3:30.
Okay.
And
That's
hit the road
not
by
so
like
bad,
4.
Right? By 4 a.m. Okay. Yeah. And what time did you start the trail?
I think 4:30, 4:45.
Okay. Yeah. And so what, you finished at like
around 1
p.m.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, not too bad, but it's just, there's a lot that goes into it. You got to be prepared when you're up on top of these mountains, you know, like you're exposed to the elements.
Yes.
You're at the mercy of nature. And that's just like, I'm not about that. I do other dangerous stuff, but you know, that's just not my,
well, that's the safest part about starting early is that you don't get the afternoon storms. So like typically the 4-1 is a little bit longer loop, but if you're just going to summit and back down, like we did Mount Bierstadt, I think that took us just under 4 hours, 5 hours, something like that. And so we started around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're back down to your car by like 10 a.m.
Okay, well, that's not too bad.
So, but like, you're not as exposed.
So you missed the afternoon storms.
Yes.
What if there's morning storms?
You prepare for it. A lot of it, like we definitely make sure we check the weather, like leading up to the hike, the day of, that type of thing. Because for me, it's not worth it if it's going to be crummy weather. You can't see anything. Like I've had people tell me that they hike, they get to the top, and you can't see anything. So if you don't have a clear day, for me, it's like that's the rewarding part. Yes, the physical side, but then of course you look around and you get to see everything.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that's really cool. You know, I've seen pictures and stuff, so that it looks
that'll do.
It looks cool too. I mean, I've been on top of like 13,000 foot mountains, but it was like snowboarding. I was hiking, and you know, I get a hike or snowboard down, so the reward to me is worth it.
That's fair.
You know, walking down doesn't sound so great, especially because if anyone knows, we'll do the incline. I don't know if you ever heard of it in Colorado Springs. Yes. It's like a mile of stairs. It's ridiculous. And the way up is like a mile of stairs. And there's just a trail you could take back down that's like another 3.5 miles. So the way down is almost just as hard as the way up. So it becomes this like, it's just challenging all the way around. So
I find the 14ers to be less challenging on the way down. And I think it's because you don't get out of breath. You don't have that like shortness of breath. My heart is pounding because on the way up, of course, you're gaining altitude and you're just doing harder work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's awesome. Yeah. And so you've done now how many? Like 5 here in Colorado?
I've done 8, I think. We've done 7 since we moved here.
I've done none. So thank you for that. And you can keep doing them. You have all those. We have a member here, Gretchen. She loves doing that stuff. She travels to Nepal and does that. So you guys have at that.
Yep. She was actually the one that recommended the direction that we do Bros.
Oh, okay.
So you can do it clockwise or counterclockwise. And coming back down Bros, she said, was really hard. So we were like, let's go up that and come back down Democrat.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, she does a lot of that. Cool. Well, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So let's dive into, you're a doctor of physical therapy.
Yes.
And did you know, like graduating high school, that, you know, when you started undergrad or college, that's what you wanted to get into?
Yes and no. I've kind of, like we said, I've always had like a strong passion for health, wellness, fitness, kind of movement, understanding it, and gaining knowledge on that. When I graduated high school, or even partway through high school, I don't remember telling my dad this, but he says that I was like, I'm not going away to school. I'm just going to go to junior college, get some gen eds out of the way, and then decide from there. Thankfully, my parents pushed me and they were like, you really need to experience like 4 years of college. Just go. We know you'll find what you love and just experience it. So when I went there, I went to Ball State University and decided, let's study nutrition. So I kind of started on like a dietetics route. After my intro to dietetics class, I had a professor who was unhealthy looking and overweight. And
they're teaching you nutrition and like
yes,
how to be healthy.
Yes.
Imagine that.
And for me, practicing what you preach is a huge thing, I think, because
absolutely,
if you are saying one thing and look or do a different thing, to me, it decreases the value of what you have to say. So I kind of reconsidered I don't know that this is what I really love. Sat down and actually talked with my brother-in-law, who has very similar interests as me. And he said, we have a lot of similar interests. I really think you'd like these exercise science classes. Why don't you go ahead and try that? So I signed up for the classes, and within like the first 2 weeks of my classes, I was like, this is it. Like, I want to know more about the human body, how it moves, how it functions, like what we do to it and how it impacts us. And then deciding, okay, where do I want to go career-wise with this? And so again, my brother-in-law was like, I'm going to become a physical therapist. And I was like, okay, me too.
Awesome.
So it really wasn't until I was in my PT program that I decided, okay, this is really what I want to do and make this a career. And being in a background from sports, I had previously had like back pain from a cheerleading incident and went to kind of a run of the mill place. And I don't think they understood the intensity that I was training, what requirements I had physically. And so, yes, they were able to rehab the pain then, and it made it feel better, but it wasn't translating into sport. And so that's where my passion for like working with athletes came from, was there's a disconnect between what we learn in PT school and what's the physical demand of the athlete in front of you.
Got you. And when you were going to PT school, did you know that you specifically wanted to work with athletes at that time? Or were you still kind of like, I just want to be a doctor of physical therapy? Or was it like from the get-go, you're like, I want to work with athletes?
I've kind of always had that drive of like, eventually that's where I want to be. But I kind of knew after graduation, as a student, you're only taught so much. And so it's really about, for me anyways, like repetition and honing in on certain skills and making sure you have those skills developed enough to be able to treat a higher level population, such as athletes.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of what I came from when we moved here, was high volume, kind of older individuals, a lot of low back pain, post-surgical, some athletes here and there, and then transitioning over and using all those skills for a more active population.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. And where did you go to PT school?
I went to a smaller school in Illinois called Governors State University.
Okay. Awesome. And as soon as you finished that or got your license or what have you, what's the first job you got after that?
My first job was actually with a clinic in Indiana. It was the place that I finished my last clinical rotation. So through PT school, you go to different clinics and kind of have a certain number of weeks at different locations to give you exposure in different settings.
Gotcha.
And so I had a 10-week clinical with this clinic and was hired on. So I think I graduated like May 16th and started May 20th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So like right away. And was this clinic, was it like Gen Pop or was it more athletes?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was mostly
general population. Sorry.
Yes. Mostly like, I would say between late 30s to like upper 80s was kind of my range. But then I had some high school athletes who would come in, and then we had people up to like 94 years old. Gotcha. So I've really seen a little bit of everything.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Gives you lots of experience. So that was your first. And then is the next step in this story that you became a part of Unite, or was there a stepping stone in between there?
Nope.
Okay.
That's it.
And how long ago was that?
3 months ago.
3 months ago. And that's when you moved here?
Yeah.
Okay. So 3 months ago-ish, moved to Colorado. Now you're working at Unite Rehab Perform in Thornton, Colorado, which is where we're located. I just hit that CrossFit MOB. And they do really good work.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working with Dr. Victoria for about 3 months, and she does really good work. And I'm very hopeful for my full recovery. If I could just get her to listen to what I want to do. I'm kidding. It's the other way around, and I'm kind of a knucklehead. I'm like, hey, can I jump yet? And she's like, no, you can't jump. And I'm like, are you sure? Watch. And then she's like, don't. Anyways, I just like to keep you on your toes. So primarily working with athletes right now, would you say?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, so I have like a couple questions. So I'm not really familiar with necessarily the way that being a physical therapist works as far as like clinics. And generally speaking, are there certain clinics that maybe only cater to general population people, and then certain ones that will do sports athlete recovery?
Yes.
Like generally, is that kind of how that works? Like it's one or the other, or?
You can get like a combination. The hard part about like in-network, meaning like use of insurance, you're kind of tied with barriers of like how many visits you have. A lot of times, like things that I found was like the equipment that you have. I can give you things that are going to help your performance in your sport, but for like a barbell athlete, like somebody who's in CrossFit, if I don't have a barbell to be able to look at your motion in the clinic, I'm not doing you justice into what we can attain with performance, right? So you can get both. It's difficult to find.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So another question on that is, from your experience, generally, when you're working with the client or the patient, what would you say are some of the biggest differences between just kind of your general population person that maybe got referred to physical therapy and there's like, I'm just here because my doctor said, and working with an athlete that, yeah, they might have been referred, but they're trying to get back to maybe some explosive type of movement or something like that.
Right. You've been an athlete, right? You are an athlete.
I like to call myself one. I don't know.
But with your injury, taking you out of your sport is a lot more than just physical, right? There's the mental side of it as well. Of this is my life. I want to continue to be active. And now something is stopping me from that. And so I would say the drive and the perseverance that you see in athletes is way different than just like general population, where I've had people come to me with back pain. And yes, they want to get out of back pain because it's not enjoyable to be in pain every single day. You wake up and you're in pain. But they a lot of times look for the passive modalities, meaning like massage, maybe some dry needling, things that they don't have to put in the work for, where athletes are constantly asking, what can I do to help myself? What do I do when I leave here that's going to continue helping because I feel the change?
Gotcha. And typically with working with athletes, maybe I'm not the best example. I don't know. We'll find out. Would you say that you generally are having to hold them back from doing too much or push them to do more than they think? Or maybe is it usually right in the middle? I know which one I am. I'm the one that she's like holding back because she's like, don't be a knucklehead and hurt yourself again or something like that. But generally speaking with athletes, what do you experience?
I would say you get both. You get people who come in and similar to you, right? It's like, well, I feel physically fine, so I'm going to go and do it, right? And then it's you just don't understand the potential risks, or maybe you understand it, but you're okay with taking those risks. And so for us, we're just trying to keep you healthy and safe, right? Where sometimes we will have to scale back for athletes. Other times you can have an injury, or I've seen people have an injury that kind of scares them. And so to get back to like pushing weight, pushing the intensity, it can be scary for risk of injury again. So sometimes we do have to encourage people like, this is okay. This is why we're doing all of these things. So you get just like a mix of personalities in anything. You'll see the same thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was just curious because I know where I fall on that spectrum.
Yes.
And am I your most challenging client right now?
No.
Oh, see?
No.
Good to hear. Nice. So yeah, I'm not too bad. So on that, I was talking about this, I forget with who recently, about treatment duration. So the time that people have treatment compared to like maybe just a normal person that isn't into sports or being as active compared to your athletic moving type people. And from your experience, would you say there's a difference in the treatment length between these two people? Like, so your general person, you know, maybe they're 8 weeks and your athlete, maybe they're 12 weeks. I don't know. Like, do you see a general trend difference there?
So the difficult part is when you think about treatment that physical therapists provide, what our idea of what would be ideal isn't always supported if you're in network or out of network, right? So at Unite, we have the ability to work with you for the duration that we see fit because we are out of network. So you don't need your doctor to tell you, here's 2 times a week for 6 weeks. So it depends, right? A lot of times I try to give people the outline of this is where we need to go. This is the time based on your injury, because we talk about different healing times. With athletes, typically you're working in a healthier population. They don't have as many medications that they're on or comorbidities or diseases, things like that. That also impacts their healing time as well. So when you're working with general population, you do have to take all those things into account. Age, are they having other comorbidities? Do they have blood pressure issues? Things like that.
Got you. And so like generally maybe you can speak to this. I had an opinion on this, and I'm not certified. I'm not a doctor of physical therapy. I have experience with physical therapy, unfortunately, more than I would like. You do great, by the way. But I've had like 5 surgeries, and I've heard like mixed reviews on recovering from certain surgeries or just getting back to what we would like to consider 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to, specifically, we'll just reference, I ruptured my Achilles. I had Achilles surgery. They had to repair it, suture it back together, or what have you, to get that tendon to work again. And the other people I've talked to, I've gotten like mixed reviews from people that is like, they've had the same surgery or the same injury. And I've heard people that are like, I've gotten back to 100%. And I've heard people that are like, I've not gotten back to 100%. And they've all done like physical therapy and things like that. And my opinion, this is my opinion, you can maybe chime in on this, is I think most everyone can get back to 100%. Like, and I would almost say anyone can get back to 100% after recovering from an injury or like a surgery that, you didn't like lose function of a limb or something like that. I think the main difference is the consistency, the determination, and the frequency, or how long and often you continue to do physical therapy. And I think what I see with the people that maybe didn't recover 100% is, and I think this happens a lot with general population, whether it's from desire or maybe insurance limitations, is how long they go through the physical therapy process. And I think the difference with athletes, me specifically, is what I consider 100% might be different than what someone else considers 100%. Because let's say your general person that maybe isn't as active, mm-hmm. and maybe sits on the couch, or sits down a lot, doesn't sprint, an interesting, like, let's just kind of branch off real quickly here. An interesting thing I heard on the internet, TikTok, and it's probably true because it was on the internet, but I think there's a good level of truth to this, because I would be willing to bet, because I lived this life long enough, is like 90% of people over 30 will never sprint again in their lives. And I don't know if that exact percentage is true, but I know it's probably close, just from being alive and seeing people. I'm over 30 now, won't sprint. And what I was getting at is like, okay, so if I'm a person that doesn't ever really sprint anymore, maybe I'm not so active and I don't run that much mm-hmm. anymore, and I don't jump anymore. What I consider normal for me is just being able to walk,
right,
and like move around at a normal speed, which is, I'm about almost 16 weeks out from my surgery, and I am almost walking normal now.
I would agree. Yeah.
And so for that person, maybe I would be like, oh, like I'm kind of recovered now. I don't need to continue to go to physical therapy. And, I'm just ready to live my life. But I have a different frame of reference. Right. I'm not able to run yet. Well, let's start. I'm not really able to jog correctly. I could correctly, not able to run correctly. Sprint, definitely wouldn't be trying that. Jump, not really. Like, I can kind of jump, but these are things I probably shouldn't really be testing too much right now. Right. And so, like, for me, I feel like I'm still so far away from 100%. And do you, I guess, feel like there's a level of truth to what I just said about being able to recover the 100% in those different frames of 100%? Because I like to tell myself, and this might be a lie, that like, just because that person didn't recover 100% doesn't mean I'm not going to. I'm going to, because I'm going to put my mind to it, and they just didn't work hard enough. And
well,
that might not be the right verbiage, but that's
right.
kind of the way I think about it in my head. It's like, you just didn't work hard enough to get back to your 100%. And now it's like, yeah, it sucks. You're not able to move 100%, but it's like, how often did you do PT? How long did you do it for? Right. Were you doing it on your own? Like, were you, anyways.
I would agree and disagree. So I would agree with the sense that, like you said, most people can get back to their definition of 100%. Their definition looks different from person to person, right? And it also depends on the tools that they have at their disposal. So for someone like you, you're currently seeing us at Unite, mm-hmm. and also another physical therapist.
Through my insurance.
Yes. And so you kind of get to see both worlds, where the equipment, we've talked about the equipment mm-hmm. that you see in your other physical therapy clinic, mm-hmm. and what exercises they're having you do. And yes, they might be challenging balance or specific movements, but really when you think about capacity for you, getting back to the intensity of CrossFit, It depends on what tools you have, who you have guiding you. So for you, you have a base knowledge of exercise. For somebody who doesn't, like a high school athlete, they're still in the learning phases of that. And so they might be putting in the time and effort, but if they don't have the tools or the guidance, they might not reach their full 100% in my eyes, for example, right? So it depends, again, if someone's really capable. And then when you think about general population, you also have to consider, again, what medications are they on? Are they having other health complications? When you think about like cardiovascular disease in America, right? People need blood flow to heal. Yeah. And when you have cardiovascular disease, that's already going to take a check mark into how are you recovering? Diet is another huge thing of recovery. Right?
See, these are all things maybe with recovery I kind of knew, but didn't maybe consider in the way I was thinking. So that's why you're the expert. But that makes tons of sense. But like I said, that's just what I like to tell myself because I'm like so stubborn. Like I'm going to get back to running and jumping and sprinting and playing soccer and playing hockey and snowboarding and doing all the CrossFit and stuff like
and
that.
All those things are achievable for you. You're healthy, you're active, you had a base fitness level that was probably higher than most of other people your age.
That's right.
So that all puts you at a different playing level, I would say, compared to some other people.
Gotcha. Okay. Generally, how many, like, have you worked with multiple Achilles injuries?
I've seen a couple.
Have the other ones recovered 100%?
Yes. Yeah.
Like running, jumping, sprinting?
Yep. Back in Indiana, I was actually seeing,
all right. We're pretty hopeful here. All right.
Co-treating with another therapist, but a fireman who had torn his Achilles, and I think he was playing like pickup football or something, and he ended up making full recovery, was able to do all of his physical fitness testing and everything and get back into like fire academy stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that good. That brings me hope. I'm hopeful. I'm still in the middle of my recovery process. I don't know. Like, I guess I could look at the sheet. I had a sheet, but like time wise, what is typically like the length for this type of injury till we're like 100%?
So
this is more me asking you as my PT right
most
now
surgeries,
in the middle of this podcast.
Most surgeries, when you think about Achilles rupture, you think about ACL tear, they say 12 months, a full year, is where you should be full return to sport. Like 100%.
So what if I tell you, and I have someone that could vouch for this, that the doctor that did my surgery is also does a professional sports team, said he's like with high level of confidence, and you can quote me on this and ask someone else to verify. I don't want to throw out names right now. It's like, he literally told me these words. He's like, at 4 months, you'll probably be back to playing your sport. And at 6 months, probably back to close to 100%.
So that goes back to
achievable.
Yes.
Likely.
With what you're dealing with right now in your personal case, I don't know. We've got a lot of other compensation things going on too, right? Because you are strong on your other side. And so there's ways that people can compensate if you have a strong side. And even though the other side is recovering, you compensate so much that you don't have to use that side. But that's where the risk of further injury comes into play, right? And that's where I need to do my job at expressing to my athlete why I'm holding them back or why I'm advising that they take a step back from intensity sport, certain activities, things like that.
Yeah, which you do a great job. She does a very good job. Very good physical therapist. I had nothing but great experience with you. I'm just a knucklehead and like to kind of try to do my own thing. I really do take your advice, but I'm also like, let's see if I can kind of jump. Let's see if I can kind of run. I don't know. And I'm just being impatient. That's my bad. But thank you. You do great for me. So I really appreciate it. So like at Unite, you primarily are working with athletes.
Yes.
Or people that call themselves athletes. And you yourself are an athlete, so you have passion for it. Mm-hmm. And like something you said earlier in the podcast that resonates with me so well that I'm just like so relieved to hear you say, but just anyone in general that is marketing or selling a product or a service, is like what I've said in the past on this podcast is like, you should either look the part or consume the product that you are selling or something like that, right? So it's like, nobody wants to work with a personal trainer that is overweight. At least in my opinion. Maybe there are people out there that do, but my thought process behind that and why I say I wouldn't want to, and I think most people wouldn't want to, is like, if you're trying to advise me on how to be fit and healthy, but you aren't doing it for yourself, why should I take your advice? And it goes to the same thing with nutrition. If you're trying to give me nutrition advice and you don't eat well, like, why should I take your advice? Right. Or it's like, if you're a doctor of physical therapy and you're trying to tell me how to move and how to move correctly and how to be safe, but you're not doing it yourself, like, why would we take your advice?
Right.
And what I will say, and this is a breath of fresh air over at Unite, is they all practice what they preach. And that is amazing. That's huge to me. And that should be huge to everyone out there as well. Dr. Victoria, Dr. Ken, Dr. Sarah, they not only are trying to get people to move athletically, but they move athletically as well. And you work out?
Yes.
How often?
5 to 6 days a week.
5 to 6 days a week. And what type of exercise do you do?
A little bit of everything. We'll run. Of course, we do the hiking. We'll do like cross training type stuff. So we do CrossFit style movements. I don't know that I would classify it as CrossFit. We do like main conventional lifts. We kind of do a little bit of everything. My goal is kind of, when people ask, like, what are you training for? Kind of just training for life. Like, I just want to be well-rounded. I want to have kind of a shoe in a little bit everywhere. I also think that helps me understand my athletes a little bit more when I'm working with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it does. I will tell you guys, it does. I've worked with other physical therapists, and not to say anything about them, but they'll be like having me do something and trying to demonstrate, and like they don't move well, or they're not even able to do it.
Right.
And I'm not like, I don't want to listen to you, but at the same time, I'm like, you're telling me this is good for me, and it's good for my body, and it's good for movement, and I should work on being able to move that way correctly. Like, why aren't you working on being able to move that way?
Right.
If you're trying to tell, anyways. So,
yeah.
That was something you said earlier that really resonated with me. I'm in fitness and health and nutrition and stuff. So I make sure, number one, to look the part. That's part of my job.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, to practice what I preach, which is something that you do and you guys do at Unite, which I think is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So if somebody recently has some type of injury or ailments, you don't work with like just injuries, right? Like maybe somebody's been experiencing shoulder pain for a little bit.
Yeah.
I consider that more of an ailment that's been around for a long time. And they wanted to work with you. What would be the first step to reaching out to you?
So a lot of times we take people through what we call discovery visit first. So it's a 30-minute free, absolutely free, no hidden fees or anything. They sit down and they talk about what they do currently, what they're looking for. We kind of ask them, what does your training currently look like? What are your goals? What does the timeline look like for you? Get a feel for, are we a right fit for them, and are they a right fit for us? Because we're not for everybody. Your general population, some people might find what we have to offer worthwhile, while other people, it's just not what they're looking for. And so we can help guide them in the right direction. We go through a general movement screen to make sure, like head to toe, just how you're moving, get some insight if you're coming in with shoulder pain, where the shoulder pain might be coming from. And then from there, we would do the initial evaluation where we actually break down joint by joint, full assessment, head to toe, what's going on and what's contributing towards why you're feeling what you're feeling.
Got you. And would you do that whole process with somebody that's like, let's say me, first time ever meeting you, I came in, hey, I'm recovering from Achilles surgery. Would you do that whole kind of screening, or would you like, let's just start with working on this and we can screen stuff later?
So for you, I would, if especially you've already had surgery, this isn't before surgery.
And you don't know me.
Right. We would go through the full screen. So we would sit down and talk about what's going on. And even try and find out, why did this happen in the first place?
Yep.
Right. It's probably not just one little, you were playing soccer, right? So it's probably not just one.
I was playing soccer.
One little sprint, right? You sprint regularly. So what potentially
and it was halfway through the game. I was already warmed up anyways.
So what else is going on that contributed towards that is what my job is, right? To find the root cause.
It's so great and awesome. You like anyone listening out there, Unite is a top-notch performance rehab physical therapy place. Like, because I say this because I've been through multiple physical therapists and surgeries and recoveries, unfortunately, but hey, I've recovered 100% from all of them, which is kind of nice. And I've never had a full screening anywhere besides Unite. When I go in to see them, it's usually a referral from the doctor, and they're just like, oh, your shoulder or your Achilles needs, we're just going to start working on that. But then they start getting, like, once things start getting better, getting you into dynamic movement. And it's like, they haven't even tested, like, can I do a lunge properly? Or does my knee joint and stuff bend properly? My hip work properly for me to do a lunge? How's my overhead flexibility, my arms? Like, you know, how do those things work? It's like, they don't test any of that. They just get you moving right away. And I think the great thing about the screening is like you can identify things that's like, okay, well, like I'm a perfect example. I have left knee pain. I've had it for a long time. So there are certain things we might be doing in our recovery that it's like, I might not be able to do it, or it might hurt. And it's nothing that happened during our session. Mm-hmm. I've been dealing with this for a long time, but it's like, how would you identify that if you didn't do the screening?
Right.
So I think it's so pivotal to do that. Like if you're doing any type of physical therapy, recovery, rehab, whatever, it's like, I think a full body screening is not only like a good thing, I think it should be a necessity. And if you're going to a facility that doesn't do it, man, I would really try to find one that does. Or maybe I would just request from your PT, like, can we just do a full body screen so you know what you're working with? Like,
and that's what gets tricky is sometimes like coming from an in-network facility. We did some of that, but you're also again tied to with insurance.
How many sessions?
Yes. Yeah. And where you can treat based on the referral from the doctor. So in certain states, I haven't looked into Colorado, I believe it is, because direct access would be, you don't need a doctor's referral. You walk into the clinic and say, hey, I need an evaluation. In those cases, we were able, back in Indiana, we were able to treat head to toe what's going on. A lot of times here, I'll see someone and they come in with wrist pain. And when I have them doing like our screen and we're having them lunging and we're having them do stability tests and single leg standing, they kind of look at me sideways, like, what's going on here? But then when you explain your body is connected head to toe, something that's going on in your shoulder can be from your spine, can be from your hip, right? It sounds crazy, but everything is interconnected.
Yeah. And I just learned this yesterday. I was talking with somebody that wrote a book on the body and like pain and stuff. And it was like something sticking out in my mind. I didn't even read the book yet. I just saw a picture was that you can have like pain, shoulder pain, like the back of your shoulder, that can also be diagnosed like through wrist pain. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, like that's really far away. Yeah. So everything is everything. Like everything's connected. And yeah, absolutely. So that's why I think, and you think it's necessary to do this full body screen, which is amazing, which I've been through. So I really love like working with you guys. I think that if there's a right way to do physical therapy, that they do it really good over at Unite. And also you're going to get what you pay for. And, you know, they are very, very much worth it. I had another question I wanted to ask you about the recovery, and it kind of just left my mind. But what I will get into, maybe to close this up, because we don't like to keep these long. I don't like to do like the 3-hour podcast like Joe Rogan. I don't know if you've ever listened to a 3-hour podcast by Joe Rogan. Mr. Rogan, well, we're going to get you one day. Your podcasts are too long. So let's shorten them up. I just listened to a 3.5-hour podcast on alcohol and performance, which was really good. Mm-hmm. So, okay. What I did want to ask is, do you guys work, like, let's say you work a lot with athletes. Do you work with people that maybe aren't athletes?
I would say maybe not competitive athletes, but everyone that we see in our clinic has some sort of active lifestyle, even if it's as little as like I go on walks every day. Or they're playing with, they're trying to keep up with their kids, right? They might not play soccer, but they go and kick the ball in the yard with their kids, and they just live an active lifestyle. Those are typically the people that we'll see that aren't necessarily athletes, but they're still active daily.
Got you. Yeah. And so this is actually the question I wanted to ask. Thank God, because I wanted to ask it before we ended. So real quick, maybe for us that don't really know, I know there's what I know, then there might be more types. There's like 2 types of like physical therapy. Mm-hmm. There's passive, and I think the other one's active.
Right.
And real, like, what's the difference between those 2?
So passive modalities are kind of what you think of when you think of like table, like when you're on the table at physical therapy and they're doing, like, we are performing hands-on techniques, whether it's joint mobilizations, getting your joints to move better. We'll do dry needling, which I know is one of your favorites.
I love it.
Soft tissue mobilization, like releasing tightness in specific areas. That's kind of passive, meaning you as a client don't have as much physical input. Active would be where then we transition into our exercises. And so it's so important to have both, especially early on, because the hands-on stuff can help to improve joint mobility or decrease any tightness. But if we just send you out the door after that, your body doesn't know how it's supposed to function in those new range of motion or the new muscle tension, length tension relationship, things like that. So if we don't load the tissue, it's going to return back to its normal state, right? So really, when you think about the biggest impact, you think about that exercise piece, because that's going to be what you're doing in your day-to-day life. And that's what's going to keep your pain and your symptoms from returning.
Gotcha. And so in each session that we've ever done, that I think I've ever done at Unite, we do a little bit of both.
Right.
So we do active and passive. In the other order,
Yes.
We do passive and active physical therapy or recovery. Would you say that's typical of most like physical therapy like places?
Typically, yes, at least from my experience as like a student and the last place that I worked at. It's always been a good combination. You might notice, especially like at Unite early on, when you're kind of limited in what we can do exercise wise, specifically like post-surgical or someone who's just in a lot of pain. Majority of your visit might be spent with the passive, but then as you get closer to the end of your care, it should be less passive modalities and way more active, that retraining, teaching your nervous system how to move, coordinating movements, building strength, things like that.
Got you. And right now I'm like half and half, so I guess
yeah,
halfway. Yay. Do you ever find that you have like maybe in the past or clients that like don't want to do the active part?
Yes, very much so.
What do you tell them?
I mean, I advise them, right? I advise them on what's going to be best for them. Just again, providing education for me to my clients is one of the most important things that I can do. And so you might feel better when you step off the table, but if you don't exercise and keep moving, I expect it to just return. And
Gotcha.
So getting that through to them sometimes can encourage them to partake in the exercises. But there are times in my last clinic that, people just walked out of our treatment room and decided, that's all for today, thank you, and would leave, right? So there's only so much I can do. And for me, it's just providing them value and especially educating them on the importance. And I feel like that's the extent that I can do.
Yeah, and then, it's like the old saying, you can only lead a horse to water.
Yes.
You like can't force him to drink.
Right.
Speaking of which, this happens a lot in my field. And so I'm going to ask you, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Have you ever had to like fire a client where you're like, hey, this just isn't working? Like, I can't work with you. And I'll tell you just real quick, I do this and I've done this in the past because it's bad. It's a bad marketing or look for me if we've been working together for 8 weeks, 6 months or whatever, and you're not getting good results. Because you don't want to take my advice. It's like, that's actually doing me a disservice, because then they're going to be like, oh, you've been working with Gobs for 6 months and you're not like getting better, fitter, healthier, but like, I'm not going to go work with him. Have you ever ran across that?
Not very often. And I would say for different reasons, yes. A lot of times it comes down to when someone walks into our office, we need to make sure it's a true orthopedic condition that we can treat. If somebody's coming in with a heart attack, right, I might be able to catch it and they're having arm pain and I do a screen and nothing's reproducing their symptoms. I'm not necessarily firing them, but I'm telling them, you're not appropriate to be here.
I can't really help.
And in that case, go to the emergency room, like that type of thing. And I've had symptoms of clients that are similar. We've treated for 3-4 weeks without any change, and truly any orthopedic condition, there should be a change within 2 to 3 weeks.
Gotcha.
Some sort of change.
You're not like firing. You're just telling them like, hey, this isn't really working out for you. Yeah. Mine's more like, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
And this is bad for me. So,
and
you're fired. No, I don't say that, but it's an awkward conversation.
Right.
Every time.
And it's kind of that happy medium of making sure, at least in physical therapy field, like you are part of the medical field, and making sure that I'm doing my due diligence, screening people, and understanding, is there something else that's going on, or is this truly something that I can treat? Because if you keep coming back to me week after week after week and nothing's changing, and I'm not trying to figure out what's going on and adjusting and still no change, and then suggesting that you get care somewhere else, then again, I'm not doing my job. So similar for you.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay. So some similarities.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that. That was a question I wanted to ask. So we'll wrap up. Don't like to give them too long. It's less than an hour, I think. Just real quick. So like, let's say somebody is recovering from an injury, or maybe they want to get a screening, and they wanted to work with you directly. How would they contact you?
So if you just like Google our office number, which I don't have memorized,
That's sorry. Okay.
But if you just Google us, you can always give us a call. Somebody will answer or call you back if we don't answer, and get some information about why you're calling. Understand, is this something that's appropriate for us to treat? Because we've also had people, when you hop on Google and you search like therapy, different types of therapy will come up. So making sure that what you have going on is something that's appropriate for us. And then scheduling, of course, if we find that we can treat potentially what's going on, scheduling our discovery visit.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So if anyone out there is wanting to work with Dr. Victoria or get a screening at Unite, you can Google Unite Rehab Perform in Thornton, Colorado.
Yes.
And you can either call. Do you guys take like email forms as well?
I believe online. So. Yes.
Well, Google them. You could definitely give them a call. Yeah. I know Michaela will probably answer the phone, and she's very nice. She will get you guys hooked up, or leave a message and she'll call back. They're very good about that. So if you are wanting not the PT maybe that you want, but the one you deserve, I would hit them up. And I'm a testament to this. They do very good work. I worked with them for 2.5 years now. And all of it was prior to this injury that I have. And it was all work on prior to my injury, getting me to move better athletically as an athlete, or, whether you just want to run better, I want to lunge, I want to be able to kick a ball better, throw a ball better. It's like, all right, we're just going to work with you on doing that. So if that sounds something you're interested in, hit them up. They do amazing work. We've had now Dr. Ken, Dr. Sarah, and Dr. Victoria from Unite Rehab Perform because of how good of work they do. So please, don't take my word for it. Go try it out. And as always, if you're in the area, Denver, Colorado, stop by CrossFit MOB. We'd love to have you. Free trial. We offer a free trial week. And if you have any questions about anything we talked about, post into the comments. Anything fitness related, we're happy to answer those and get you referred to the right direction. All right, until next time, we're going to get off the couch and go do something active because we got things to do today. And you guys can do the same. All right, thanks for tuning in.